Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to City Hall. We're glad to see this large group of people for our agenda meeting for August 8th, 2017. And of course, as you know, and many of the people who are watching know, we use this as an agenda meeting to set the agenda for our meeting upcoming on August 15th. So we also have some presentations, and we do have one this afternoon. That is a recognition of the KTHV Channel 11 serial drive. So let me see who's here. Laura? Laura, if you would come up, please. Laura Monteverde with KHTV, our morning anchor. Welcome.
Thank you. Would you like me to stand here?
Right there, if you would. Okay.
Not my normal time to be awake, but we're good. Do you want me to turn this way?
We don't want you to fall asleep.
I took a nap. We're good. Would you like me to stand this way or over here? Okay. Well, we are proud to present this award to the City of Little Rock, and I just want to begin by saying a big thank you to everyone who is involved in this cereal drive. It's been going on for 17 years now, and the goal was big this year. It was 500,000 cereal boxes, and we figured out the numbers, we crunched the numbers, and that's enough to feed hungry kids in Central Arkansas for the entire year. Now that's a big goal. We got to, I have the exact number, 344,693 boxes. So that means that we're getting bigger and better every year. When we started out with a couple thousand 17 years ago, it's an amazing feat to be able to get that many boxes. Last year, the City of Little Rock participated and I think got about 4,000 boxes. Well, this year, the City of Little Rock donated 18,059 boxes. So big round of applause for the City of Little Rock. That's about 14,000 more than last year. And our goal last year, I think, was 300,000 boxes. Well, we got about 320,000. So that 20,000 boxes really helped us to meet that 344,000. We appreciate everything the City of Little Rock does, and we hope that this shows that next year, y'all can set an even bigger goal and make that goal of 500,000 boxes. So we want to present this award to you from THV 11 on behalf of the station and all those hungry kids in Central Arkansas. We appreciate all that you do. And here you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Mayor, I'd like for the team, our team, to come up and accept the award, and then Captain Wright, if the entire team would come up. I'm really proud of this group. Come on up. As you all know, we're very competitive, and I really put a charge out to the team. It was co-chaired by Octavia Ashford and Debbie Farr. Debbie, if y'all and Octavia, raise your hands. Again, the whole team did a great job, and the employee groups. At this time, I'd like Captain Robinson to say a few words. Captain Robinson.
Fran.
Thank you. He wants to squeeze in to get a picture. Hey.
Can you see other? You're so tall.
That's a first. All right. I first want to say thank you to Laura because I've never been called tall.
And I'm on heels.
Thank you. The City of Little Rock has always had something going to help the community in which we serve. You heard the numbers that she gave today, and she talked about the difference between last year and this year. And I just want to point out to you that the difference in this year's goal was the City of Little Rock. We went from 3,100 boxes last year to over 18,000 this year. And this is proof positive what can happen when the team of the City of Little Rock come together. When we have the support of leadership and support of all the departments coming together, we can do anything. Fire Department talks about serving with pride, excellence, and national recognition. This year, we definitely served with excellence in everything that we did in the cereal drive. But more than anything, I close with this simple point, is that we can't fix everything, but we can always put forth an effort to make things better. And that's what we've done in the state of Arkansas. For these children that need it, we have made things better for them because of our efforts. So I want to thank the team, thank the City of Little Rock, thank Bruce Moore, City Manager, as well as the Mayor, and all those that have helped out. And thank you. Hold it up. Team, come back. Team, come back.
On this side. Are you going?
And the chief head in my face.
Captain and team, thanks so much for that great effort. It really makes us proud of our city, and you're right, Captain. Working as a team, we can accomplish great things. So thank you very much.
And I look forward to your support next year.
That's right, 3,100 to 18,000. I'm not sure, but the sky's the limit on that, right? Good enough. You might have to buy General Mills pretty soon. Okay, we can now, please note that we've got a big recognition coming up on the 15th, which is the Little Rock Fire Department Accreditation Recognition, which is a significant milestone, which I know our fire department and our staff are very, very excited about. Let's go and tackle the consent agenda, items 1 through 13, and let me ask board members if you have any questions on any of these items, 1 through 13. Yes, go ahead, Director Adcock. Oops, I knocked you off. If you do that one more time, please.
Item 11, are we going to do a presentation today, or are we going to wait until next week for that presentation?
Director Adcock, item 11 is just to set the date for the public hearing, so we normally don't do presentations, but I know the director is here, and he can talk about what the $11 million, I think we've already gone over that, but the board's approved it, but we can definitely talk about what the $11 million are going for next week.
Okay, we'll do it next week then. Thank you.
Okay. If there's no other questions about those items, we can move on to the planning and development items. And let's look at the first page, items 14, 15, and 16. Who has questions on any of those three? All of you do? Okay, I'll just take them in order then. Director Wright, you're first, please.
Mr. Moore, can you tell us at this time what zoning districts these facilities will be approved to locate in? Number 14.
Yes, ma'am. Basically, we were directed by the constitutional amendment that passed as far as where these types of facilities can go. So this is just clarifying in our code where they can go. And basically, they're classified the same way as retail pharmacies. And again, that's dictated by the constitutional amendment. So let me ask Mr. Collins to come forward and talk a little bit more in detail, and then I think Dana Carney, if there's any specific questions. Jamie?
Mayor, members of the board, Director Wright. You know, as everybody's aware, the marijuana amendment of 2016, the cultivation facilities and dispensaries were approved. What this code they're wanting to get enacted does is it allows those uses that you're speaking of in under the city zoning regulation is permitted in the O2 and O3 office zoning districts. And then also the uses permitted by right in C1, C2, and C3 commercial districts, and conditional use in C4, and also in the I1, I2, and I3 industrial districts. So those are the zoning classifications that these will be, allowed to operate.
So I guess it's early days yet, but have we received any applications to date?
We have received several phone calls and meetings. We received one application, and it is in the extraterritorial area out west, and it's only for a dispensary.
Okay. The reason I'm asking, in one of my strip centers on Barrow, I have a small neighborhood pharmacy, and so it seems like something like this would fit in somewhere like that, and I was just kind of concerned. Okay.
Okay.
But the state will be regulating these and so
It will be
forth?
regulated by 3 agencies for 3 different things, but yes, the state regulates it, when they get everything in place, as far as zoning, they make the application. And then they have reviewed at the state level for distances,
Okay.
between, from churches and schools, and there's distance requirements,
You don't know what that is yet?
1,500 feet for dispensary and 3,000 feet for a cultivation facility. And so it just depends, and that's set by the state.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Are there any other questions on item 14? All right, Director Hines, you're next, please.
So Jamie, so you guys did, I know we had some meetings, so you guys, we've got a mapping of basically based on the minimum distance from schools, churches, so we've got a pretty good idea where they can go in the city based on the state statute.
That is correct. We made a map just to kind of see where we thought they would be able to go. Keeping in mind that map is not approved by the state. That just gives us an idea of certain areas that they can go in those radiuses, the 1,500 and the 3,000.
And Tom, based on our conversations, we are basically limited, we can't require a conditional use permit or any other kind of extra good neighbor hurdles based on the state statute.
Right, not unless we require it also for just a pharmacy.
Okay, and so you don't see any way we could differentiate between a pharmacy and a medical marijuana dispensary, seeing that most of these dispensaries won't employ a pharmacist or be anything like a pharmacy?
Well, I guess they're both drug stores, so no, I can't see a way to
Okay, thank you.
differentiate them.
Okay, Director Adcock, you're recognized, please.
Now, where do we get a copy of the map?
I can get it in everybody's pony by Friday, most definitely. We have a PDF copy that we can send out.
I would like to have both the PDF and a
Okay?
real copy, please. Because in Southwest Little Rock, several years ago, there was a item that was going to go that nobody wanted in the city, and Southwest Little Rock has ended up with 2 of them. And I want to make sure that that doesn't happen again.
Okay, and like I said, I want to reiterate that this is not an approved map by the state. They still would determine the radiuses. This just gives us an idea of where they could potentially go.
How many places is it on your map that they could go?
Not a lot.
It's not a lot. There's, like I said, it depends on whether it's a by right zoning or whether it would be a conditional use zoning. And so we have 2 of them, and so you kind of look at both of those.
But Jamie, let me point out, the one thing that we have to think about is, Jamie's correct that we looked at it from a by right and a CUP process, but when they turn in their applications, which are due in the middle of September, one of the boxes they have to check is that it's already zoned properly. So if you're interested in a piece of property and it's not zoned properly, you're not going to be able to include that in your application. So to be honest, only property at this point, we're in the middle of August and it's 30 days, there's no way you're going to get something through our processes as far as a CUP. So it's really only areas that are by right. Even though it's allowed through CUP because of the state application process, which is due about 30 days from now, you're not going to be able to get something rezoned or get a CUP in place by the time you have to turn in your application.
But since that limits it, how many are by right?
I can't answer that specific questions. It's just in the zones, and we didn't count them all on the
But
area.
talk
but
about
in the
by
map.
category, which are by right though.
The by right was the C1, C2, and C3, and then the I1, I2, and I3 zonings.
But it's more than that. That's by
spacing.
right, but it's 1,500 feet from a school and several things, or 3,000 feet for a cultivation center, and there's only going to be 4 in Pulaski County, and there's some dispensaries, and there's only going to be 1 cultivation group in Pulaski County. So
Maybe.
It might not be any.
Yeah.
We're in a zone.
we're in a zone where we may not get any. So not only are there are only 5 conceivable chances that anything would be located here. But then if the property is occupied, nothing in the Constitution gives them a right to locate there. They'd have to be out on the market like anything else to be able to get the property.
Lord, if you look on your monitor there, you can kind of see the zones that they was talking about. That's the dispensary zones.
Well, it could be anywhere in zone 5, either one of those counties.
Yeah, but only 4 in a county.
Yeah, for a max per county.
So we could have one, Faulkner and White and Lonoke could have one.
No, Pulaski County could have up to 4, but it would be Little Rock, North Little Rock, Jacksonville, Wrightsville, Alexandria, would be the entire Pulaski County can have 4 if they can find a place to put it.
Oh, okay.
And Scott, if you could go to the other map. That is that map is the zones for the dispensaries, for the cultivation
And there could only be
facilities.
one in the white?
One in the central area, yes, central region.
Aren't there only 4 that have been authorized? Yeah, and you've got 5 areas, so conceivably, you could have 4 distributed here out of 5, and there'll be one that doesn't have it, or I don't think there's any restriction on how many within each area, but I would expect that the ABC board is going to look at dispersal as an issue. In other words, looking to try and make sure that various parts of the state are covered.
And it's not open cultivation either, it's indoor cultivation.
Okay, the dispensaries, do they just sell it to the locations in Arkansas? Can they sell it to other states too?
The cultivation centers are designed to sell to the dispensaries in Arkansas and not outside the state.
Do they think there's going to be enough need to have that many?
I don't know what they think, but that's what they've concluded as the rules.
Okay.
Director Hancock, does that take care of
Yes,
your
it-
questions? All right, Director Wyrick, you're next, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Jamie, you said you had a request, or you had a permit request,
Yes, we had an application.
an application, and can you divulge that location?
I'll ask Dana to come in and to speak about that application.
Okay, is it for a dispensary or agricultural?
Dispensary.
Dispensary. Okay, well, before he comes, let me go into another thing. Typically, the ABC, like in regards to liquor permits, they look to us for zoning appropriateness. And apparently, we have said that it falls in the same category as a pharmacy. The state statute says that.
Yes, ma'am.
That it goes in
The
the
Constitution,
Right, it was a constitutional
state of
amendment.
Arkansas
Amendment
does.
says that.
bigger than the state, okay.
Yeah,
So
the,
the Constitution says that. Wow. Okay. So they're saying that it's a by right in C1, C2, C3? Or
No.
is that just because we have our language in those zonings that reflect pharmacies?
the way the amendment reads is that we have to treat both facilities, dispensary and cultivation, as like a retail pharmacy. Wherever, and if you have zoning in your city municipality, that is where that goes. We have to allow that use in where we allow retail pharmacy. So whatever we choose to do with one, then you have to do it with retail pharmacy also.
And the date will be determined by the date the amendment became effective. So what our zoning was last year is the zoning that deals with dispensaries.
And Tom, I think that the logic of that conclusion then is that if you were to try and change pharmacies in some other way, it would not be permissible.
Right.
Okay.
Couldn't change the way we regulate our farms?
No, I need to add this. You can always hold an election, and if there's an election that changes it for the entire community, that can be done. But absent that, no, you cannot treat a pharmacy any different than a medical marijuana dispensary and vice versa.
If we change, if we start regulating, we could change and regulate pharmacies but we have to do both the same way, right? So we
I-
could change our zoning regs?
I think if you change your voting regs after the election, then the argument would fail because the date of the election would be the date that became effective. And
Well,
would be,
and that's where I was gonna go, but Lance didn't have the microphone, but he's already asked the question. He believes in small government, so we share, yeah. So, and that was my next question to ask. C1, C2, C3, we have pharmacy listed as a permitted use, in those. And then I guess conditional use permit under C4 and the office zonings.
That's correct, and like Bruce said, I mean, as far as them hitting the deadline, the conditional use or only by right can go through right now. The conditional use will not be able to go through by the deadline,
Okay.
by our process.
Okay, and then I thought I was up on the number of dispensaries and then the number of cultivation centers until the mayor started talking. So is it 4 dispensaries within, the 5?
it's 4
From the amendment.
dispensaries within Pulaski County is the max.
4 within Pulaski County, okay, and then 1 within those, one cultivation center within those conglomeration of counties.
They've authorized 5 facilities.
Okay, so
One
tell
in
me-
each region.
Okay.
Of the
So you
5
had a map
regions.
up here that had a region on it, and it was highlighted for several counties. So okay. So you can have how many in the Central Public Health Region?
You can have 1 cultivation facility.
Okay, that's what I thought you were saying. Okay, and then for dispensaries, tell me how that works one more time.
Well, dispensaries, what the amendment reads is dispensaries are limited between 20 and 40 in the state, with no more than 4 dispensaries in any one county.
Okay. So we have a possibility of 4 in Pulaski.
Jamie, explain how many were authorized by, I don't think they authorized 40, did they?
No, they authorized 32 dispensaries in the state.
Okay. So back to the zoning. We've had some situations that we have figured out were issues. Like, for instance, some of these convenience stores where we figured out they were problems in the community, and those that did not sell gas at them, we did some regulation on those. And it's because of, over time, we figured out, that there were issues with those, and so we made some changes. Could it be appropriate that we figure out that there are some issues with pharmacies that maybe we might need to tighten up to help with this dispensary issue?
Director Warwick, I'm not going to say that, time stands still and then that we may not find a situation with pharmacies that needs to be relooked at, and then in looking at it, it would impact medical marijuana dispensaries. What I'm saying is that if just before the deadline we change the ordinance, that would be seen as pretextual, and I don't think it would stand. These applications need to be in by the 17th of September. Is that the date? 18th of September. So if we put in a new condition right here at the last minute that hasn't ever been there before and wasn't at the time that the amendment was passed, then I don't think it would be enforceable. But that's
if-
not to say if in the future we find out that,
Okay, that's where I'm going. In the future, if we determine that it is an issue for the location of these dispensaries,
for the location of dispensaries and pharmacies,
and what?
and pharmacies.
Oh, pharmacies, okay.
I mean, if you have a high traffic volume at a dispensary, but overall dispensaries and pharmacies are not creating a traffic problem, then you're not going to create traffic as a reason to relocate a dispensary. On the other hand, if all the dispensaries and all the pharmacies have a situation where they're holding up traffic and traffic lines, then you'd be able to do something.
But not through zoning. You'd have to do it through some other sort of regulation, wouldn't you?
Well, I think that the concept of traffic is a zoning issue that can be looked at the appropriate time.
at the time of the permitting?
No, at the time in the future that we've got the history of traffic concerns at pharmacies and dispensaries.
Okay. Very confusing. Okay, so we had an application for a dispensary, and you're going to cover that with us?
Yes, Dana, if you would, please.
We did receive one rezoning application for a property off of Lawson Road. It's outside the city limits, but within our zoning jurisdiction. And the request is rezoning from residential to, I believe it's a PCD, planned commercial development for marijuana, medical marijuana dispensary. The issue we're going to be looking at is whether that site is appropriate for any commercial zoning. And it's very early in the process, but at first blush, to be honest with you, it looks questionable as to whether it's appropriate for any commercial zoning, which is the question we have to ask ourselves, not whether it's appropriate for the medical marijuana. Is it an appropriate location for commercial zoning? And
So I
Like I said,
guess
it's very
if it's
early
a,
in the
if it's a
process.
PCD, then any one of these zones could fall under their C1, C2, C3, but they have to state what the uses are.
Under
in a
the
PCD.
PCD, they have to tell us what use or
Right.
uses that they want approved, and it can be as strict as one single use, or it can be, we want C1 uses, or C2 or C3 uses.
But if I understand Tom correctly, and my friend over here is raising his hand, if I understand Tom correctly, you have to look at it as a pharmacy.
From a zoning standpoint, that's why I said the question we're going to ask ourselves is this an appropriate location for commercial zoning? And if it's a commercial zoning that would include a pharmacy, then it would be appropriate for the medical marijuana dispensary as well.
Okay, that's all the questions I have. Go.
Dana, let me ask a question maybe for clarification purposes. So a person could come in and ask for rezoning and not list one of the C1 or C3, et cetera, uses. They could come in under a PCD and ask for a medical marijuana dispensary as
I
a
suppose
use.
they could ask that, but again.
I know, I understand you have to determine
Right, the
whether
amendment
it's
tells
suitable,
us
but
we have to treat it in the same
But from
fashion.
a zoning classification, it would then include any kind of a PCD application as well, if they specify that as
use.
the particular use, right? Okay, all
But they
right.
could come in and request a pharmacy in a PCD, and then they could insert a medical dispensary, marijuana
They could.
medical marijuana dispensary, based on what Tom's saying.
Well, at this point, I think it's a moot issue. I don't know that it's going to make its way through the process before the filing deadline.
You're talking about this one application,
Right.
but I'm thinking about anything else that might
the
come up.
future.
Yeah,
We
Yeah.
certainly consult with Mr. Carpenter's office. I
Okay.
would, if I may, while I have a second here, over and over again, it's been mentioned, we could, 4 dispensaries could be located in Pulaski County. Well, now that is certainly possible, and I think it's unlikely. The map up there is showing the 8 regions. That's the Medical Marijuana Commission's dividing of the state into 8 regions. They've approved 4 dispensaries for each of the 8 regions. Now, within those, they can't stick any more than 4 in a county. Well, they've already decided that they're going to do 4 in each of the 8 regions. And our region includes Faulkner County, Pulaski County, Lonoke County, and White County. That means in that 4-county region, there will be 4 dispensaries. Little Rock may get 1. Will they get all 4? Each application, the Medical Marijuana Commission is doing a merit rating system where they're going to award the licenses.
so 4 for zone, for zone 5,
That's correct.
okay,
4 dispensaries in Zone 5.
okay, and 1 cultivation center in another mix of counties.
The other map, which is based on the existing Department of Human Service Public Health Regions map, that's the map they used as a guide for the 5 regions. That's for the 5 cultivation facilities. There'll be 1 in each of those 5 regions. Again, our region includes the central part of the state. And will it be in Little Rock, North Little Rock? Who knows at this point?
Okay, Director Richardson, you're next, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I think my question's been answered, but let me make sure again. Tom, I think you're right about the September 18th deadline. Is that for cultivation site and dispensary?
September 18th is the deadline for submittal of all of the
All
applications
of
to
them.
the state.
My second question, given the number of schools and churches in the city of Little Rock, have we done an assessment about how many can be located in the city? We know how many could be located in the county, but have we actually done an assessment to figure out how many could be located in the city?
We've
Given-
not put
given the
numbers-
geographical restrictions.
We've not put numbers to it. Mr. Collins mentioned the maps that we put together, and we'll certainly get you copies of those maps. But it shows that a great deal of the city will not be available, especially for cultivation facilities.
But even the dispensary, wouldn't it, given the number of churches and schools
of
we have, wouldn't
churches
it kind of
and-
limit the number can be available in the city of Little Rock?
1,500 feet's a pretty good distance.
And 3,000 for, we probably won't have one cultivation, but Dana, have we actually, would that be an information we're gonna get in the pony
don't
regarding
know
the
that
number,
we-
actual number that'll be allowable?
I think, Director Richardson, what we're going to provide, and again, this was our stab at looking at by right and conditional use and taking both the 1,500 and 3,000. And I can tell you, even with everything in there, it was very limited. The map I'm going to show you Friday, I've decided is really going to be just one that's by right, because by the 18th, there's nothing, nobody would be able to come in. In fact, the filing deadline was this week.
Right.
And we got no applications for a CUP. So I think what I'll show you is both, but really for this first round, which I think the majority will be awarded, there are 8 more that can, but that's another process. But we'll show you sort of by right where they can go, and it's very limited.
Okay, but Bruce, Tom, Dana, Jamie, thank you guys for providing this information for us.
There's more questions, so let's, Dana, just a recollection, way back when we passed the sexually oriented business ordinance,
Yes.
was that at 1,000 feet?
That was 750.
750
The
feet.
state actually had it at 1,000. We found out later that their distance was greater than 750. So, but ours is 750.
750, well, way back when we did that, there were very, very few locations at 750, which had a very similar kind of a restriction in it. In fact, it took a long time before anyone figured out the one location that did actually go into business. So. Director Fortson, you're next, please.
Dana, you refer to pharmacies, or this is parallel to the definition of a pharmacy. I'm trying to clarify in my mind, like, in my neighborhood, there is a pharmacy that's not as large as this boardroom. It primarily fills prescriptions and sells candy bars and a few other things. Short way down the highway, there's a Kroger with a pharmacy, and even further, there's a Walgreens. It's open 24 hours a day. And those are all, in my mind, pharmacies. How are those going to be different, or how will these dispensaries be governed differently from that? Will there be restrictions on hours, corollary merchandise that could be sold, delivery mechanisms, any of those things?
No.
Not at the city level. They may be regulated differently through the mechanisms of the state as far as delivery and
Right.
accessibility and security. Those won't be
Regulations
covered
of
by
that
this.
nature have not been promulgated yet.
I don't know. I believe they have, but it doesn't come down to the city level. That is at the state level.
Often we have applications that get in your department, go through staff, and then go through the planning commission process. And you get neighborhood objections, and sometimes things get amended to control hours and a whole lot of things that affect land use, but truly affect business operation as well. But they get handled under land use. Is that sort of what we're going to be facing with these, that John Jones files an application, goes through your staff review, and then when it goes to the full commission, there will be all the normal back and forth and attempts to amend it, restrict it, expand it, or what have you?
I would not be surprised to see that happen if, in fact, we had to do a conditional use permit.
And so in another typical land use situation, if they get an adverse decision, it'll be appealed to this board, and you go through the same process.
Potentially, yes, sir.
It would be interesting if you research it to see, I can see that a 24-hour Walgreens in a neighborhood is probably welcome in case you've got a sick baby at 2 a.m. and need a prescription filled, but I'm not too sure how many neighborhoods are going to want to see a 24-hour marijuana dispensary in their neighborhood. So, anyway,
Director
just-
Fortson, you've got another issue that I think needs to be brought out. First, the application is $100,000.
Right.
And second.
And I guess, Tom, like in other zoning deals, that our question can become a determination in the dialogue and consideration in the planning process.
If our zoning doesn't allow it, then that's fine. The map you'll get Friday that Bruce just mentioned, a lot of the places that are available are at the Little Rock Airport on the runways. We know that nobody's going to rent space to a medical marijuana dispensary on the runway. That just happens to meet it. But the second problem that you've got is this, and I think you ought to take note of it. Attorney General Sessions has made it quite clear that he is not real keen on states like Colorado and others that are allowing marijuana in violation of federal law. And if that comes to the place, then all the investments anybody makes to locate one of these places is just gone. So it doesn't matter that we have a state constitutional provision that would allow medical marijuana. If the U.S. Attorney's Office decides they're going to prosecute, it's going to be prosecuted. And those entities, whether it's the dispensary or whether it's the cultivation thing, they can't use federal banks to keep their money because it's against federal law to put any monies in there that come from drug things. So they're going to be very limited where they can do that, and there's not just a lot of state banks in Arkansas. There are some, but there's not just a lot.
You anticipate my next question, Mr. Carpenter, and that is, I know that the discussion in the banking circles now is most banks are not going to want to take deposits, which says, okay, if these things do a high volume of business, are we free to impose certain security requirements? I mean, if it's an all-cash business and nothing but cash going through there, that's a high-risk environment, in my opinion, and
Not unless we're going to impose them upon drugstores.
so it'd just be a good target for the holdup men.
Well, if we pass the video surveillance ordinance, then I'm going to give you then, that will be.
Yeah, that's all I have for now.
I predict that they've got this filing deadline in the 18th, and I'm not sure how long it'll take them to winnow it out. But, this is not something that's going to be coming to us on a very frequent basis. I mean, if we get one or two of those dispensaries, I think you'll probably get one. Whether we get two or not will be really a matter of how many legitimate applications come from some of these other counties, I think. So, it's really, I think, once those permits are issued, it's going to be very rare that we're going to be seeing these kinds of things come before us. Director Wright, you're recognized, please.
Mine is on another item, ordinance number 17.
Okay, let me just see. I've got Director Adcock. Do you have a different item or this item? Same item. Okay, go ahead, Director Adcock.
Tony, Jamie, Dana, can they coexist with a pharmacy? Could we have a pharmacy that would put one of these in their pharmacy?
I didn't read anything in the amendment that says that couldn't happen. I think it would boil down, it would go down to that use and that zoning. And setback and the radiuses, and then also, it depends on some of these, I don't know if we have any pharmacies that are actually operating in non-conformance right now, just because they've been there for, ever, when all the zonings got enacted. So it could, there's a couple things that there would play into that.
But I think the major piece of that is the setbacks, that you might have a pharmacy now, as Director Fortson talked about, that is operating, but a new dispensary would have to meet those setbacks, and retail pharmacies don't have those requirements.
Okay. A Fred's Dollar Store has a pharmacy in it. Would they be allowed to have one of these inside that type of store? Because I would see that this is not going to have enough traffic, and so they would put it into a location that has traffic coming into it.
If you're talking about the use of a pharmacy, then yes, but then all those restrictions that we talked about go into place, and the zoning.
Okay. Could we regulate the hours of pharmacies? I know we have 24-hour Walgreens and CVS's. Could Little Rock, I guess this is a Tom question. Tom, could we decide that we need to regulate pharmacies?
Yeah, if you're going to make it applicable to everyone. And that's going to be the question. And then you're going to be, I mean, I'd have to think through this. I guess regulatorily you could. Would it be a taking from the Walgreens when you take away business from them for a certain number of hours that they're operating otherwise? Director Eckhock, the best way to answer this is there's a lot of what ifs, but what we're trying to do is just to have Little Rock in a position where nobody can say, no, we want to go someplace else because y'all had nothing in place. That's really what this is about.
And my last question is, this is medical marijuana.
Yes.
Most of us pay our medical bills without insurance. So if this is going to be an all-cash business, how are people with insurance going to be paying for this?
That's not our issue.
Just wondering. Thank you.
Director Hines, did you want to speak on this issue?
Did one question for Dana and one for Tom. Dana, on aren't pharmacies an accessory use in office buildings, and they can occupy up to 10% of the area of the office building? That's one
Yes,
I know we didn't.
that is correct in the office zones, specifically O2 and O3.
Okay, so that
they're
would
allowed
essentially be a by right use,
But
essentially.
limited to no more than 10% of the floor.
Right, but if
area.
you got a 100,000 square foot office building, you got 10,000 square feet.
Assuming that none of that 10,000 is already taken up by any of the other accessory uses,
Right.
a sandwich shop or a florist, or it's an aggregate area of 10,000 square feet.
Okay, all right. Just want to clarify that because we hadn't talked, that's something that came up, we hadn't talked about. Tom, question for you. My concern here is, remember when we had the issue with the halfway houses that were self-regulating, and you thought we would be running afoul of federal housing law if we, even though we could require them to do a CUP, but we couldn't say no, even though we had a process.
Well,
Or we could say no, but we might be sued under fair housing and.
what we said is that the definition of family in zoning is typically up to 4 unrelated people. That for these facilities that assist people, it was changed to up to 8 unrelated people based upon a number of decisions from the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals that said anything less was a Fair Housing Act violation.
And then we had the Americans with Disabilities Act too. Here's my question, since we have the state constitution at play, if somebody comes in and decides they want to apply for a PCD, are we going to be able to tell them no? Where a medical marijuana dispensary is concerned? Or is this going to be a backdoor around? What I'm saying is, as the Constitution created this backdoor within the legislation that would allow somebody to use a PCD to basically, how would we say no if a pharmacy on an approved PCD would be an allowed use?
You wouldn't, but even though it comes in as a PCD or any type of planned zoning district that a pharmacy could be located in, it would still be subject to those restrictions. It would still be subject to the setbacks and those other matters.
Right, but on a normal PCD, we could decide not to approve it based on neighborhood complaints, that stuff. What I'm asking is.
And if we have a
if
history
so-
of doing that on pharmacies, then we would be able to do it for marijuana facilities, but I can't answer that question.
Okay, I just want to know what the standard is, and there, I think you laid it out, so that was my question. I'm just, I think we're in uncharted territory with a lot of this, and I'm not in a big hurry to make it so they might not go someplace else, so, where these are concerned, so, thank you.
Director Richardson, did you have anything else? on
Yes,
this?
thank you, Mayor. Tom, this doesn't supersede federal law, correct?
the state constitutional amendment does not.
Does not. And the other question is, you said there's a $100,000 application fee, and there's also, I think, a $2 million deposit fee or $2 million asset that you have to show that you have this amount of money available.
Director Richardson, I know that there are requirements, but since the numbers were far beyond anything I could think about, I didn't pay attention to them.
So we're paying you enough time.
Not for that.
Dana, is that correct? Is there like a $2 million cash flow piece you have to have set aside?
Number that they have to show. that
So
they
in
have
addition to a
financial-
$100,000 application fee, it is?
It's, no, I don't know. the
Can
exact-
we have that in our pony as well? That exact number?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, you know, I know the state is looking, I'm gonna add a new wrinkle to this just to ask for some research, but I know the state is anticipating a revenue stream as it relates to both the cultivation and the dispensaries, and so, Mr. Carpenter, I'd like you to do a memorandum to us on what the parameters of are for the city in terms of what we may be able to anticipate or receive from a revenue stream as it relates to that, should any of these facilities be located in Little Rock or within our zoning jurisdiction?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Okay, Director Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. My question is on ordinance 17, I think it is, Jamie. Was there any opposition to this signage?
Mr. Collins.
These apartments are kind of like a lightning rod, and, but I haven't received any communications about the sign, so I'm just following up.
There, on the planning commission, which was July 20th, there was no opposition. It was on the consent agenda and approved.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, anything else on that page?
Item 21, ordinance 21, Mayor.
Okay, item 21, Jamie?
Were there any objections to this one as well?
There was a one person present with concerns.
Was that a neighborhood association representative or just an individual?
That was just an individual.
Okay. Trying to wrap my head around where this Rowan Village. Lance, are you familiar with this 2700 block of Shackelford?
Scott, if you could break up the zoning map.
Thank you.
It is just Director Wright, it is just a little bit north of the 36th Street and Shackelford intersection. Just right across from the Shackelford Crossings development. Aldersgate is just north of that. That vacant land, that's open space right there, that is Aldersgate.
So, this is it right here. I saw a sign there and I saw some people working and I was wondering what was going on. Now, Aldersgate did not object to this?
No, actually, they come in and spoke for the deal, that they have worked with the Cheese, on the deal.
So this is the Chi development, okay?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
It was Miss Sonia Murphy.
okay.
Well, she come in and she spoke in favor of that they worked with the Cheese. She did raise some concerns about the revocation of the planned commercial development. Let me rephrase that. So she was not in opposition to the developer or what they've done in the past. She raised some concerns of just the revocation of the planned commercial development.
Because if I recall this discussion, when the Cheese initially raised this development, Aldersgate was concerned because they didn't want the traffic coming through their development. So there won't be any of that to access this property?
Right now, this revocation is just removal of the planned commercial development. There's
Yeah.
not a site plan associated with it at this time that's going in. It is just a revocation for the underlying zoning.
More multifamily. All right, thank you.
There was a multifamily apartment aspect to the planned commercial development that was approved already in that.
In that, so they could have put a
They
multifamily
could have
in
put
that?
yes.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions on that page, let's see if there's any questions on 25 through 28. Any questions there? Director Hines, you're recognized, please.
Sorry, Mayor, I can come back to it. There was something on the consent agenda I missed. I was looking for it because I thought it was separate.
Okay, we'll go back to it in just a minute,
Okay.
if that's all right.
I'll come.
25 through 28, any questions? If not, we can move on to the next page. And you'll recall these, Jamie, you may want to come up on this. You'll recall this was on our agenda in our meeting last week, and it was deferred for 30 days, or no, 2 weeks, excuse me.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. And so this is back to us again. This is the Granite Mountain 3M property issue. And as I understand it, they have offered a change in their application. Is that correct, Jamie? And if so, would you kind of put the map up and let's
Yes,
see what
Scott,
that is?
if you could put the zoning map up, please. It would be, the 30 right there. Mayor, what you were speaking of is 3M, at the board's direction. I went back and thought about what they was wanting to do with the property, with the concerns that, Director Campiris raised. And what they're proposing is the area that they was looking to rezone to mining was Track 5. So what they have sent us a notification that they are wanting to remove Track 5 from that application. So the remaining tracks are still on for the rezoning, which is all open space. They are not going to rezone Track 5.
Okay. Any questions on that, just so everybody understands? Okay. And then on 31, I take it that would abandon the rights of way on all of the tracks?
On the if you go into the map, for 31, Scott, in those areas, it would abandon all the right-of-ways in their property. And those are just paper lots that was platted.
That would include the
That would include that
Zone
area
5
too.
area as well?
Yes, that would include all the zones as proposed, and then any easements that are there for the utilities, and there is a few, not many at all, for water lines will remain in place. It's just abandonment of the right-of-way.
So if that were ever redeveloped for R2, which it currently is zoned, which it will be zoned, they'd have to come in and replat that property?
That is correct.
Okay. Okay, good. All right, thank you. Director Hines, yes, you had a question on consent agenda?
Yep, Bruce, on Resolution 5 on the Main Street Water Quality Improvement Program, so what portion are we, I know the first phase, we got federal funds on it, and so what's the story as far as the financing? How much are we putting in as a match on this?
Dr. Hines, we received a grant, Arkansas Natural Resource Conservation Grant in the amount of $536,000, and then the match of the balance is coming from 3/8 cent plus 20% contingency. So basically half, and then we plus a 20% contingency.
All right, and then is that coming out of the Ward 1 allocation, or is that the citywide allocation?
Citywide.
All right, thank you.
Director Hendricks, you're recognized, please.
This has nothing to do with the agenda. That's when you get to that point. Are you ready?
You're recognized if you'll pull your microphone
Okay,
over.
what I wanted to ask Mr. Moore, there's a meeting scheduled at the Hinton Resource Center with one of the residents of Ward 1. Do you know who scheduled that meeting at the Hinton Resource Center?
Can you be a little more specific what
Well, I didn't open up my computer, but I was just looking at Director Richardson. It's something that's happening. The video presentation. Who arranged that? With
you would remember there was a group that came down to speak during citizen communication and wanted to show a video that they had produced. And we don't allow that during citizen communication. So I think Ms. Jeffries contacted the city.
Do you know who she talked with, Bruce?
I know she talked to me. I'm not sure who else she talked to, but she said she was going to talk to you and invite all the members of the board who wish to come.
Yeah, well, I talked to her, and I disagree with that because the president is not even aware. So that meeting may be canceled, okay?
Okay, just let
By
us
Irma
know.
Hendricks, okay?
What date is that?
That was, I think it was the 21st, if I'm not mistaken.
And then the other issue that, am I at liberty to say another issue that I have, is that we received a request from the Black Police Department. I'm talking to the mayor now, not you, Bruce. I'm talking to the mayor. There was a letter that all of us received from the Black Police where we answered in unison and individually, because I plan to talk with them.
If you're speaking about the letter,
From Willie David,
if you're speaking about that letter, that was, I think we did discuss that. That's a personnel matter that was referred over to the city manager and his staff.
I disagree. I think that if we received a letter from them, Bruce is a manager. He doesn't run
It
this.
dealt with employee issues, and if you, certainly any board member can speak out about anything they want to, but relative to a collective decision through the board, the matter has been referred over to the city manager and his
By
staff
whom? By
for them
whom?
to be able to respond to it.
Well, you said it was turned over to the city manager by whom? You? I know I haven't.
Well, I was sent the letter, and I believe it was copied to the board. I reviewed it. It was a personnel matter, and felt that the proper way to follow through, there were several requests and several issues of investigation that were referenced in it. Certainly not something that this board is capable of doing, and so it was referred to the city manager and his staff for their review and their response.
You said you're not speaking for Irma Hendricks, are you?
I wouldn't hesitate. I would never hesitate to speak
I
for
don't
you.
think so. So I'm gonna let you know I will be meeting with those fellas.
As I said, any board member can speak about an issue if they wish to, but
I see an expression on Tom's face. What's your problem?
I'll let Tom respond to that relative to the personnel matter, but
Director Hendricks, if I'm remembering the correct letter, it's not only a personnel matter, it's a Civil Service Commission matter, and they've got exclusive jurisdiction over it. So I don't have a problem with any board member meeting with the group if they wish to do so. I have a major problem with any board member wishing to discuss in a public meeting a matter that should go before the Civil Service Commission.
Okay. Say it again. So I should not meet with them? Is that what you're saying?
No, I don't have a problem if you wish to meet with them. That's up to you. What I'm saying is that matters that deal with uniformed officers are handled through the Civil Service Commission ultimately. There's a very definite and statutory process set up to do that, and that is not a matter for public discussion by this board until there has been some sort of decision.
Thanks, because that's something I could share with them when I meet with them.
Right.
Thank you.
okay, Director Wright, you're recognized, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Moore, I want to follow back up with a request that myself and I think a couple of other board members made in reference to our street improvement policy. and mine is in reference to Bowman Road. I would like staff to come up with a plan for Bowman Road improvements. I know what they say the cost would be, but I'm trying to get something done on that road that's reasonable. And 16 to 18 million dollars to me is just not reasonable. It's just something that I just can't see even ever getting done. So I brought to you a concept called P3 a few months back, and I'm wondering if there's any mechanism that we can use to try to get some improvements done. And I know the P3s need to have a funding mechanism, and I know that we've got some sales tax money coming up, but all of it can't go to Bowman Road. So I need something so that I can tell my constituents that are impacted by Bowman Road, which is a lot of people, that we are at least working towards some type of solution. And as I understand it, there's some property owners along that corridor who would like to assist us in this process, and I would definitely like staff to facilitate something. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes all the items. Just on the video surveillance ordinance, I'd hope to have it to you today. I've got the city attorney's office and the planning staff checking some definitional issues, and so we'll try and get that out to you just for review, not to put on the agenda, but for review by the end of the week. Director Hendricks, yes.
Mr. Moore, would you give me the privilege to meet with you and the grass cutting people? They are really getting on my nerve, your staff. And I think some things that are going on that you don't know about, but I know about it.
I'll set up a meeting with our housing director and myself and you. And
When?
I'll have Lori call you tomorrow.
What time? Tomorrow?
No, I said I'd have Lori call you tomorrow.
Bruce, if you don't call me, I'm going to wring your neck. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all very much for attending.